and understanding, guide the minds of those who are about to take counsel together on matters concerning this county, that in their debate and in their decisions they may faithfully discharge the duties of their office and promote the health, safety and well-being of those they seek to serve. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Amen. This evening, we start with apologies for absence, please.
We've had apologies from Councillors Stevenson, Conde, Dale and also Councillor Sheen.
Thank you very much indeed. I'd just like to take this opportunity under Chairman's announcements just to read out the following notice to anyone who's intending to record a meeting. If you would like to film, blog, tweet or take photographs of the meeting, you are permitted to do so without causing disturbance to the meeting proceedings. A designated area has been set out to allow you to do this. Please be aware that you are not permitted to move outside the designated area, as this may disrupt the meeting. A protocol which governs this activity has been placed on the table for your information. Please also be aware that members of the public who are not part of the meeting have not consented to being recorded, therefore please do not include them in any recording activity. And thank you for your cooperation. So we'll now move to my other announcements.
Chair, can I just have one thing, please? Can I just ask clarification? Does that
point of information?
Yes, a point of information, Chair. Does that include the editing of filming for nasty purposes? Does that also include that?
I've been advised that any film that is taken at any meeting should not be edited in a way to be unreflective of what happened at a particular meeting. Thank you.
I look forward to it.
Thank you, Mr. Plews. My announcements have been circulated. So item number 2, announcements from the leader, members of the Cabinet or head of pay service. Item number 3, declarations of interest. Mr. Hollis.
Chairman, item 14, as I have a personal prejudicial interest, I'll leave the room.
Thank you, Mr. Hollis. Mr. Gale.
I want to declare a personal but non-prejudicial, non-pecuniary interest in item number 14, site allocations and policies development plan. The reason being that I believe that there's land mentioned in that document where there's been illegal activity. So I don't want to be part of that segregate whatsoever. So I'll leave the meeting, but I should be here for the rest of the meeting after that.
Chair, I will be doing the same for item number 14, declaring a personal non-pecuniary interest, and will be leaving the room for the duration of that discussion.
Likewise,
Councillor Baines.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. Just in the interests of transparency, I have been chairing the Uppingham Plan Task Group for the past 3 years, but I've done so in my capacity as a businessman, not as a county councillor. I do intend, if appropriate, to speak on item 14, and I should do so as a county councillor, not in that other capacity. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Baines. Any members? No. So we'll move to item number 4, minutes of the previous meeting. May I just also take this opportunity to thank Councillor Baines for chairing the previous meeting in both mine and Roberta's absence. Thank you. Do I have a proposal for those minutes, please? Thank you, Mr. Beggy. And the seconder? Mr. Ball. So all those in favour, please.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16.
And against? And abstentions? Thank you. Item number 4, petitions, deputations and questions from members of the public. Thank you. Item number... Sorry, that was item number 5. So item number 6, questions from members of the council.
Number 6.
Thank you. Item number 7, referral of committee decisions to the council.
Okay, number 6.
Thank you. Item number 8, calling of decisions from cabinet meetings during the period from the 9th of September 2014 to the 10th of October 2014.
Number 6.
Thank you. And so we'll move to item number 9, the report from the cabinet. On page 14, now Mr. Bailey is going to introduce that.
Oh,
seen this particular document, which is the Moorcock Conservation Area Character Appraisal and Management Proposal. It's been through scrutiny, it's been through Cabinet, all the comments have been there. I would look for a seconder from Mr Baines, a ward member who has been involved with the Moorcock on this. I would propose that we accept this set of
Mr Baines.
I'd be very happy to second that, Madam Chairman, and I would like to couple it with thanks to our Conservation Officers, Trubshaw, and the exemplary way in which consultation was carried out. I attended the last consultation meeting in Moorcock. Amendments were made to the plan as a direct result of the village contribution to that, and I think it does, well, I'm sure that the officers will convey to the people responsible how effective that was. So I'm very happy to say that.
Thank you, Mr Baines. Members, over to you. Would like to make any comments? No? On that basis, that has been proposed and seconded. So if I could ask for all those in favour, please.
18, 19.
And against? And abstentions?
Just the one.
Thank you very much indeed. So item number 10, reports from committees of the council. I believe there's none this week.
No, Chair.
Thank you. Item number 11, reports from Scrutiny Commission or Scrutiny Panels. Again, I've not been made aware of any this evening. So item number 12, joint arrangements and external organisations. Members, participating.
There's three. Firstly, I continue to attend the NHS Better Care Together, in which local councils and the NHS are looking at the 5-year plan for the health service in Leicestershire and Rutland. It produces a lot of paper. I've attended 2 meetings of East Midlands councils. Once I chaired last week a catch-up for members on welfare reform, housing being the 2 main ones of those. Documents are available and I will circulate those to all members via email, well, nearly all members. And then we're in the process of working out a health summit with MPs in Westminster at the end of the month, where we're looking at comparing health equalities across the East Midlands, both in terms of actual health and in terms of health funding. I also attended the Police and Crime panel, where the Police and Crime Commissioner informs us of the work he's doing to ensure that all cases of sexual misbehaviour that have been reported are fully looked through after the Rotherham incident, and also his plans for dealing with the victims, which becomes the responsibility of the Police and Crime Commissioner. He was present, as were some members, here last Thursday when we did the children's sexual exploitation meeting. It was a good meeting with good presentations, and those that stayed for the round table afterwards came up with some very good ideas.
Mr Begley, any other members? Mr Gale.
Representing the council, I attended the Carp Lane strategy at Cambridge in Oakham this time, where we travel around Leicestershire at various centres for people with learning disabilities, mental health, and we distributed quite an amount of money to projects for people with mental health learning disabilities.
Thank you. Mr Baines.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. As the County Council Trustee on the Rural Community Council, I attended the AGM on the 18th of September, and I would just say to members there is a simplified awards scheme. Do encourage villages in Rutland to enter it. We have run things in the past. It would be nice to see us doing things in the future. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Mr Baines. Mr Place.
Chair, I've got a question from Mr Begley. Are you able to take one, leader?
Mr Bruce, you may ask your question if it's related to the items which Mr Begley has indicated he's attended.
It is, Chair. Legally, you attended a meeting with the police. Did they say anything about what's happening with the cameras in the town?
Thank you. Now I went to the Police and Crime panel, not the police, Mr. Cruz. The meeting on the CCTV is tomorrow, and that was not on the agenda.
Any other members? Mrs. Cartwright.
Thank you. Yes, I've been attending the Rutland Fair Trade Committee meetings, and pleased to say that this authority is going to give some practical assistance when they hold their annual Christmas Fair Trade Fair, which is in Oakham Castle. And perhaps we can give it some publicity on our website and hope people will get along there. It's on the 15th of November in Oakham Castle. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Cartwright. Any other members? So, item number 13, notice of motions. Obviously. So we'll move to item number 14 this evening, site allocation and policies development plan document. We'll just allow a moment for those with interest to read.
Mr. King is very sorry that he can't be here today, but he's been in bed ill since last Wednesday. And so it falls upon me to speak to you with regards to site allocations and policy development plan document. Tonight we're being asked to make one of two decisions. Do we approve the site allocation and policy document or not? It's one of those occasions where there is no in-between. The process is such that the inspector's decision is final. We either accept the paper as it is, or we reject it. The local development framework, or local plan as it is now called, has been a very long process. We started the issues and options process back in 2008, but it wasn't until July 2011 that the core strategy was adopted. In that time, it went to scrutiny 4 times, cabinet 4 times, it went to a public examination, and up to public consultation 4 times for a total of 9 months. It came to council twice. We then started on the site allocations in September 2011, and it's coming to you this evening in October 2014. It's been to scrutiny in a cabinet 3 times each. The examination in public was last November. It went out to a public consultation 3 times for a total of 7 months. And after the inspector's report, it went out for a further 6 weeks on this. Every time that there's been consultation, it has also gone out to all elected members. A summary leaflet was also distributed to every household at each key stage. So, what's changed materially since the last time Council approved it? A new policy at the beginning of the plan in favour of sustainable development. This is needed to cover the approach set out in the National Planning Policy Framework, which came out after our core strategy was approved. It states that when considering development proposals, the Council will take a positive approach that reflects the presumption in favour of sustainable development. It will always work proactively with applicants jointly to find solutions, which means the proposals can be approved wherever possible, and to secure development that improves the economic, social and environmental conditions in the area. I think that this is extremely important. This will need to be considered when considering safeguards for sites, for example, that allocate a use for employment. If it is believed that an alternative use would have economic benefits and would not be detrimental to the overall supply and quality of employment land in the county, then it need not be refused. The second change is to get us to review the site allocation and policy document in the next 3 years. We're going to have to regularly update our sites and policies anyway. We will need to extend our plans to 2036, and each parliamentary party has been committing to more housing. If we do not update, then we will be challenged by developers. Any such updates will have to take into account, as a material element, any new or emerging neighbourhood plan. There are a number of these underway around the county, including my own parish, And we see it as being very important that the views of the neighbourhood plan are taken into account into developing the future. His third change was to remove phasing of residential development. With pressure from whatever party is in government, this was always a risk in our plan. It does not change the site allocations, etc., only the control when they can be developed. The fourth removes the advanced waste treatment site in Ketton. However, he states that this can be covered by a planning application at the appropriate time. The fifth change amends the wording for waste management to secure that they are protected against non-waste development. And the sixth involves various changes to ensure that the non-site specific policies are clear, reasonable, consistent, and in accordance with current national policies. So why would one vote against this well-consulted document that has been through our processes a number of times? I know that there are concerns relating to an apparent locking in of specific land use allocations. However, I hope I've indicated clearly that alternative uses are allowed. It is always the role of elected members to make decisions on officer recommendations. I will recall clearly that officers recommended refusal for the development of houses on the highways depot on policy grounds. Members approved it and the decision was supported by Government Office. I know some are concerned about a review over the next 3 years. But again, I think if we do not do it, we will have it done to us. If we reject this document, we go back to square one. There will be no current site allocations and policy document to negotiate with developers and consider it at any appeal. Our core strategy would come under threat as it predates the new National Planning Policy Framework. With no agreement tonight, I am aware of a number of housing developments in Oakham and in villages that argue to be included in the inspection in public, which would come forward very quickly. I do recommend approval of the policies and sites in the document. When applications come before us, we will judge them on their merits. We will maybe agree with the recommendations. However, I go back to the point about presumption of sustainable development.
Sorry, Mr. Beckett, may I just ask you sort of just summarising because you're now...
I have got one sentence.
Oh, okay, thank you. Sorry.
Right. If we vote yes, we can influence the development of Rutland as put forward in our consultations and formal decisions. I fear the impact if we say no and put ourselves into planning limbo for a number of years. Ask for a second.
Thank you very much, Mr. Baines. So now it's over to you. Mr. Baines, would you like to speak? Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Madam Chairman. I don't want to repeat, but simply to endorse the 3 points that the leader made, not the technical points that the inspector made, but this is a strategic, long-term policy. Without it, we are in limbo. And I know there are some members who have a particular concern about a particular aspect of the policy, not necessarily the same one. And again, I would just like to underline the fact that each, as you well know, Madam Chairman, each application is taken on its merits. It's therefore up to anyone who's proposing something against policy to make the case, and the committee will then decide on it. There is no question, as it seems to be a common perception, that this has been proposed by members. It's an officer proposal, and we are here to endorse it politically, which is extremely important. And otherwise, it will be all over again. As Mr. Bailey says, we will be in limbo. If I could then just turn briefly to section 6, which does, Madam Chairman, deal with a general point in 6.2, which I think is important because it does leave the way open to challenge that policy through a legal route. So if there's somebody who thinks we've got it wrong or haven't followed due process, then that is the way open to them. And the next 3 paragraphs, 6.3, 6.4, 6.5, all deal with the Uppingham neighbourhood plan. And again, I think it is important in the interests of localism that of the people who voted on that, 92% supported it. And I'm very pleased to see in this report the inspector's support not necessarily for the outcome of the plan, but that we followed due process. And I don't think it can be overemphasised, Madam Chairman, that, shall I say, a knee-jerk reaction to populism is not going to stand us in good stead if it goes to any sort of judicial process. And I think we've got to be absolutely clear that we've done everything right, according to the national guidelines, according to policy, and that we have been clear, transparent about that. And I think no one should be in any doubt. So I'm very happy to second, Madam Chairman. I'd be interested to listen to the rest of the debate. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Baines. Other members? Mr. Oxley.
Well, just following on from what Councillor Baines said, I'm very pleased with what has been decided by the inspector with regards to the Uppingham Neighbourhood Plan, and all the hard work that went into creating that plan has borne fruit. And so, speaking from an Uppingham perspective, it is encouraging to see what he has said. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Oxley. Mr. Cross.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. It's always good to have these papers in front of us. A lot of work's gone into it over the years. But we do live in a fast-moving society. And therefore, as I said, the previous time we looked through these similar documents, these are guidelines for our guidance. They are not rules set in tablets of stone. And because Rutland is a vibrant economy, we have to look at the needs at any particular time. I support this document fully, knowing they are guidelines, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Cross. Any other members? Mr. Close. I'll let Mr. Woodcock and then Mr. Close.
That's just a question for the leader from me. Listening to what Mr. Cross has just said, would the leader confirm, would you agree that this document is guidelines for us to work to?
These set out policies and sites as they are seen at the moment. They will come to you at planning as recommendations and be used for recommendations by the officers. It is then for you as members to use those guidelines, and I will yet again read out what the inspector said, that an alternative use of land, if it has economic benefits and would not be detrimental to the overall supply and quality of employment land in the county, that gives a hint of what he was talking about, then it is for members to make that decision. Will it, by not being in strictly employment land, will it have economic benefits and will it not be detrimental to the overall supply? So each time you get one of these, you have to look at it, as Mr. Cross said. Things move on, and this is through to 2026. What we're saying today will not be the same in 2026. So we need to refresh it on a regular basis, and we as councillors need to make our decisions based on the policy, based on the proposals, but based on whether it is best for this county or not. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you very much. Mr. Close.
Thank you, Chair. I'll try and be as concise as I can with this, Chair. Before we sort of kick off the proceedings, Chair, we've got 3 councillors that walked out of the room tonight, okay? There's been a crime alleged, incident number 472. Does the leader want to update us on this before we carry on? Because it seems to me, before we start voting and everything, we've not got everything out on the floor. I'm not sure that we should be voting on it until we know what that is. Otherwise we're voting on something we don't know about again. So can we just have that clear to start with, Chair?
Mr. Close, I'm going to bring Mrs. Morgan at this point, if I may, rather than the leader. I think it would be more appropriate.
Thank you, Chair. As monitoring officer, I have been contacted by the Rutland Group of UKIP councillors with a complaint that the site allocation and policies development plan document will conceal crime. That crime is that the local development plan has altered the policy area allocated to housing development in respect of the Park School and Tresham Institute site and has therefore, I quote, flexed planning to give the developer greater value. This was first raised by those councillors in March 2014. It was explained at that time why the change was being made, which was to join up with the boundary line, planned limits of development along the northern limit of the adjoining built-up area to the west of the site. This allocation, along with all of the other allocations, was placed in a public document, has gone before Cabinet of Scrutiny, has gone to public consultation and has been examined at a local public inquiry, as we've heard this evening. The members have not specified what crime they believe has been committed, nor do I know what evidence these members or anyone else might have in support of these allegations. This is one of a continual pattern of unsubstantiated allegations these councillors have made against officers and members of this council in the preceding months and years. If these members wish to discuss these matters with me afterwards, I will ensure their concerns are dealt with, and if they do have any evidence with which to substantiate these allegations, I will ensure they are independently and thoroughly investigated. If there is no such evidence, I am sure that the councillors concerned will wish to publicly retract the statement just made and make a public apology to the officers of this council and their fellow members. In the meantime, I would like to assure you members that there is no legal reason that I know of as to why this policy will not be adopted this evening, should you wish to.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Mr. Please, would you like to continue?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mrs. Mark, for that update. Thank you very much. Chair, I'd like to get into ask some questions that I could. Some general comments, if I may, Chair, and some questions which obviously I don't know if Mr. Troy wants to answer. The first one, Mr. Troy, if I can ask within this policy. I don't see anywhere in it where the inspectors looked at the possibility of fracking being brought into Rutland and what our plans are for houses that could be affected by fracking. Thank you.
Mr. Please, I'm just going to interrupt just quickly to say that it's probably Mr. Begley who should be answering the questions rather than Mr. Troy. Thank you.
The area of fracking is normally covered under the mineral plan and will be coming before council. At this particular stage, there are no licences. There has been no seeking of licences, to the best of my knowledge.
Mr. Please.
Okay, I'll carry on, Chair. I'm looking at page 16, paragraph 20. I'm a little bit confused with the inspector's report on that. It actually alludes to two sites in Rutland that were proposed for planning. One of them, I think, was Northbrook, which, if you look at para 19, or number 19, it states that, you know, it's sort of gone through, but you can't understand what the difference between that is and the garden centre in Greenfield. Now, the comment is this: I find that rather strange, especially in light, Mr. Troy, if I may, what the inspector says at the bottom of para 20, that the decision that the site should not be selected for development was justifiable overall, even if the reasons given were fraud in part. So why the hell is he giving it then?
Mr. Please, again, I'm going to refer to Mr. Begley to answer the question rather than Mr. Troy. Thank you.
The basic answer is both applications have come in. They've been through the planning process, they've been through the planning committee. One was within the limit of development, as seen in the previous plan, and as such were accepted, although when the application actually came in, it so happened that planning actually refused the application because of the way it was overcrowded in there. The second one is outside of the planned limits of development, next to a sewage works where there were concerns about a cordon sanitaire. It is subject of an appeal which is taking place later in November.
Mr. Please, just before you continue, could I ask you to now sort of put all your questions together so that Mr. Begley can come back and answer all of those in one go?
Well, for I can remember, Chair, yes, I'm fine with that, if that's all right with you.
And now, just also take this opportunity to remind you you have 5 minutes as well. So,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Chair, I'd like to go on to page 29, if I may, please, which is number 92 on it. It's just a general comment. I think Mr. Begley or maybe Mr. Troy wanted to. This is regarding the Uppingham neighbourhood plan. I would like to see that firming up a little bit more, bearing in mind that if you go down to number 95, it's my view that the Oakham Ashwell Park is not performing like it should, especially in financial terms. So I would like to see a little bit of development going on in Uppingham there, especially in the employment terms for that end of the county. That was that comment, Chair. Do you want to sit down?
Yeah. But obviously, very happy for you to carry on, and if there's questions, I'd like Mr. Bailey to come back sort of with one answer at the end of the
Thank you. Then obviously go on to page 37 with number 149-150. Obviously, there was a West End regeneration bid made some time ago. I understand that was fluffed, or certainly we didn't get anything about it, but you know, it talks a good game, that paragraph, but I'd like to see a timeline given for when regeneration is going to be given. Thank you. Then I think I'll just jump one or two, Chair, if I may. This brings me to my favourite point, which obviously I know the League is going to be very smiling about, which is on page 94, which is regarding the use of military bases. I'm sorry to remind the Chairman, but again, under 7.6.c, there's a paragraph there that says not lead to undue disturbance to nearby local communities through traffic noise, military or prison activity. Now, members will be aware that I had several decent conversations with low-cost carriers that are still interested in buying Cottesmore if it's ever sold by the MOD. I know people don't want to believe it, but they are interested, including airport operators, and I feel that is contrary to what we're trying to do in this, and that's actually promote business and good, high turnover employment in this county. So I would like to see it again, I've mentioned this before, that paragraph taken out, Mr. Troy, because it's actually suppressive in my view, and if we do get an application like that coming forward, if the Army pull out, and I want to see that kind of proposal put forward. So, you know, I'll hand over to the leader on that. Thanks very much.
Three points. Yes, the Uppingham neighbourhood plan. If we approve this tonight, with the issue they have with the judicial review, it will strengthen their case more than somewhat. As for your assertion, I believe, that Oakham Enterprise Park is not a success, I will send round to all members an email which shows the success that it is, and I think it's 76% full at this particular point in time, and I will also send further around. Yet again, don't always believe what you read on blogs. The question of regeneration, that is something that is with Oakham Town Council and Oakham Town Partnership. Funding is available, and I'm afraid you haven't listened to one bit. This is not something that we can have amendments to. Currently, the Army is there, and the Army looks like actually increasing, not decreasing. Mr. Cross very clearly stated this is a moving document. If the Army should pull out at some eventual stage, Mr. Clews, I'm sure that all options will be looked at.
Thank you very much indeed. Any other members? Mr. Mountain.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just have clarification on the Oakham Enterprise Park on what it's classed as, whether it's safeguarded employment land, and also it doesn't seem to be on the map, whether I can't see it or got it on page, but it doesn't seem to be anything clearly marked for what the Oakham Enterprise Park actually is.
Mr. Munson, you well know that I'm not the expert on planning. I've taken a drive. Apparently it's outside the plan limits of development, and therefore is not in those particular maps. Is that was one thing. What was the next thing the first thing you made?
Really, I just want to understand what the land within the Oakham Enterprise Park is classed as. Is it safeguarded as an employment land?
Again, I had a whisper in my right ear which said that it is down as contributing towards employment land. At this point in time, that is a very successful operation. The number of small businesses that have started in that particular area, not all of them have signs up. So when I send the documents round which show you there and show you what the income streams are, I think you'll be very pleased. And therefore it is there for employment, and we have some sport and recreation there with the sports centre and the judo there. We're not, it's a profit maker, it's not something we're going to let go.
Thank you very much indeed. Mrs. Cartwright and then Mr. Walters. Thank you.
Thank you. I was really grateful to the Inspector for the clarity of this report. I think it's easy reading. My question is about housing numbers. The Inspector was obviously a little bit concerned that the provision was for a minimum number of houses that were required by the full strategy, but there wasn't a great deal of flexibility in our numbers. But because we were to prepare a replacement or an updated plan within 2 years of December 2016, I think it says, for adoption, we were satisfied that we only have the minimum number. How realistic is it that we will have an updated version in 2 years' time?
Having seen how long these things take and how much money they cost, we will make every effort to do that. I think one of the things we've got to recognise is that all the things I've been to recently, whatever party it is, they want more houses. He got rid of phasing, which was to take it over the plan. We now need to look at that. We've done more work with Peterborough and our other partners in the housing area. We will be working on those, and we will then go out to consultation as to where such options may be.
Well, previously, if anyone who was a councillor in the last administration would know I have spoken against some decisions this council has made in regards to the plan. And it is clearly identified on these plans here, these proposals. Another reason, of course, is that we only got the Inspector's report on the 27th of August this year, so we couldn't really have commented on it before, could we? Within the Inspector's report, he does identify that we took on the former prison and the now called Open Enterprise Park, although I believe it has lots of nurseries and get fit places in it. And what he seems to suggest is we don't need to take any more employment land, but the employment land we set aside, we don't need to let any of that go either. In other words, somehow the portfolio holder who let on that magically found a site with exactly the right amount of square meterage to meet our requirements till 2026, with no further addition required and no deduction from the land we'd already set aside. Now, I don't know about anyone else, I find that one a little bit hard to swallow. Of course, if I vote against this, I'll be accused of being populist. I'm afraid that believing something is right, well, I will vote for it if I think I'm right to do so, whether it's popular or unpopular, and I hope people will accept that. I don't think it's anyone's fault, certainly not officers' fault, that I have concerns about this. It's been going on since 2008, and things are liable to change in those long years. What we haven't done is take account of the changes that have happened in those years. It seems to me quite clear, absolutely clear, that setting aside that area of Hawksley as protected employment land, after we have taken on Ashwell Prison, when the reason it came to committee, rather than being done under delegated powers, was, and I quote, it was contrary to the local plan, makes it clear to me it was extra employment land, and we can deduct some employment land from the original proposal. So at the moment, I'm minded not to support the motion, simply on the basis that the document we have in front of us is out of date before we adopt it.
Thank you, Mr. Walters. Would you like to make any comments at this time, or shall I?
Quite happy to.
Mr.
Just contrary to what Mr. Wood said, just factually correct. Yes, we only got this report in August, but actually we went out to consultation on it far earlier than that. And if I look at my piece of paper, I can tell you precisely when that was. And that was in March, April 2014. We take this plan, like all of it, anything that can take 6 years is ridiculous. It is a bureaucratic system, but it gives a guideline on how we should develop and what shape we should develop it. With regards to employment land, one of the things I know that people are concerned about is the number of, we've got these houses being built, where and what employment can we develop over time? If we were to lose something like 1.5 acres out of approximately 26 acres, and if that was to have economic benefits and not be detrimental, why wouldn't one do it? So yes, this gives you the guidance, but I've said all along, you make decisions. It may be a planning, it may be a council, but the simple fact is, you look at this and you're the updater. You and the councillors are the updaters of this. If it is no longer relevant, don't vote for it. If it is relevant, and this is supported, my only comment to you is you have every right, Mr. Waters, to vote against this. That is your right, as we're talking now. My concern is that a small decision, apparently on that, if this does not go through, we'll be looking at the loss of not just allotments on certain sites, but allotments that we've not known about. We will be looking at sites around this county and around Oakham, where people will take advantage of the fact that our defences are down. That is why I'm proposing this, and that is why I believe others should support me.
Thank you, Chairman. I agree with a number of things that have been said tonight, not least of which is that this is a very old document in essence, but it is the document that we've got before us, upon which is a guidance document, as Mr. Cross clearly pointed out, that development control members can use as guidance when coming to their conclusions on planning, should we pass it tonight. I think there have been things said this evening which, quite frankly, are red herrings, and Oakham Enterprise Park is one of them. Employment is good. We do not want to be a dormitory county where people drive out to go and find work. And we were lucky with Oakham Enterprise Park. We couldn't have foreseen it was going to happen. It was, well, the prison situation was as it was, and officers and members took advantage of that. But it isn't the panacea for all employment issues, as has been pointed out. There is leisure and recreation activity going on there. There is a creche facility, which no doubt the people who use it are being employed somewhere, but not necessarily on the Enterprise Park. We've heard talk about parts of it being developed for educational opportunities further down the line. So yes, it's a bonus, but it's not an either-or. So I think we should think about the Enterprise Park in that light. I do understand the tensions around the pieces of land that are being designated for employment, other pieces of land for housing. But as Mr. Beggy has said, and as you know, I don't always agree with Mr. Beggy, but as he said a couple of times tonight, it is guidance. And members of development control, when they get an application in front of them, notwithstanding the report that goes with that application, will use their judgment individually in the context of this. But if we don't have something, however flawed it might be, then it really will be a free-for-all, and it will be very, very difficult to retain any sort of logic and order within this county. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Waller. Any other members? Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just got some comments. I will be looking to approve the document tonight. I think, as I've approved it previously, I believe it gives the right hierarchy and settlement to the county going forward. I'm disappointed that the phasing, the inspector has taken out the phasing, which I would have which would have given more control and structure to how we deliver. However, this is built in regarding, and as the leader has pointed out, the national changes, and every party wants to be pushing it as building, so there is always going to be that pressure on us. That is why I'm glad it is going to be kept up to date, the review for 2017. Obviously that put pressure on it to deliver, but I think that will keep us in a good place, and I'm concerned if this document isn't accepted that we are going to end up in this law of unintended consequences. Regarding, I can understand where members are coming from regarding the economic development, but if it isn't passed, we open ourselves up to developers proof or not having the proper safeguards in place. And if anyone knows any councillors from Melton Borough Council, where they have had their core strategy thrown out, it causes a lot of problems. And I think anyone voting against it should think hard and actually think, in my ward, if we didn't have this, the structure, what areas are going to be taken advantage of and how is that going to affect. So as we supporting the document, my concern, I'm going to maybe deviate from what Councillor Cross said, I'm not sure if the monitoring officer will be able to help, or is it sort of regarding the planning officer, but the term guidance. These are, from my understanding, the planning policies we will be voting on. Now we have to use our own judgment, and councillors have the final decision say, but it is these policies which an appeal will go on. And it is against the policies in this document that any inspector would rule for or against. So although I do support it, I don't believe that, and I will take advice on this, but the term guidance is a misrepresentation of what we can do with this document, in my belief. But anyway, if there is any comment on that.
Mr. Lammy, I'll bring this back in.
Thank you. I use the example of the policy that said we should not build houses on the highways land at Ashwell. We debated it, it came to full council. We, as a council, said that we believed it was wrong, that the policy was wrong in that particular instance. And I come back again, Mr. Lammy, to sustainable development. The whole of planning is built around the supposition, the first starting point is it will be approved. So all this does is control and help guide that proposal. I hope we never get a situation where our council doesn't have the guts to make a decision which is the best decision for that site in planning terms, and then say it may be against the policy as written 5 or 10 years ago, but it's not the right policy now. By doing the update in 2017, it gives you that opportunity to refresh that. When the Local Development Framework Scheme first came out, it was supposed to almost be refreshed annually. Well, it took them 5 years to get to the core strategy, so it can't be done annually. But it must be refreshed, it must be looked at, it must be worked at. And it's quite interesting how little the inspector actually changed. It's logical. But please, members, if it's not right, and you feel it's not right, and Mr. Waters, if you feel it's not right, you vote against it. That's what you do. If it's put forward for a refusal, and you feel that it shouldn't be, you give your argument, you say why it is, you base it on logic, not emotion, and you say, this is why it should be there. That's how it will be.
More time than I would maybe want at this moment is that we, as we are told, as as we're told time and time again, you have to make the decisions in accordance with policy. And it is just the guidance, quasi-judicial. And that is what I would try and drill down. You have to have these set and fair for everyone putting the application forward in. And it I'm just concerned that there could be a higher level of subjectivity in decision making than there should be. And so I just like to say that. But that I'm divulging into private opinions on the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Lambert. Mr. Baker, just want to say something?
No, I was going to ask the current and past, immediate past chair of DC. You've had more experience on DC than I. But look at the policies in the whole and not the specific. So therefore, this is employment land. But again, it says, is it sustainable? Will it deliver economic, social and that? And it's the small print, it's that side of it. It's not exactly black and white. But I would ask people with more experience than me of DC.
Did you want to make any comments?
Well, I was going to say, Madam Chairman, am I to come back a second time? I mean, that was my only query. I'm perfectly happy to try and give an opinion.
Thank you very much indeed. Mr. Oxley, you've actually already spoken.
It's a point of information.
It's a point of information, that's okay.
Well, I just wanted to say that every planning application has to be looked at on its own merits. And these are guidance, these are used as guidance when it comes to making that decision. But every single piece of land will have different emphasis placed on it. So this is just purely for guidance, in my opinion.
Thank you for your point of information. Mr. Cross, you've already spoken, so unless it's a point of information...
Always, Madam Chairman. Full of information.
Is it a relevant point of information?
I would not waste time if it wasn't.
Okay.
Bear with me. For those who doubt this document, please trust the members of the planning committee to do what is right and to interpret this document in the best possible way for Rutland. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cross. Not really a point of information. No. Straight on, thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Would any other member like to speak? Mr. Pocock, you've not spoken yet, so please carry on.
Unfortunately, it's going to be a point of information.
Okay.
Following on from Mr. Plu's question, which the monitoring officer answered, when are the 3 UKIP members going to be given an opportunity to see that statement and perhaps retract and make an apology perhaps this evening?
Mr. Pocock, thank you for your comment. However, I don't think it's relevant to this particular item, so I will move on from that. So, members, would anybody else like to say anything regarding the item we're discussing, such allocations and policies development plan, or can I now put this to the vote? Mr. Pruge, you've already spoken, unless it's a point of information.
Yeah,
so, is it really?
Yeah,
okay.
It's wonderful. I was just going to say, Mr. Cross spoke twice, and like I said last time, well done, William, your check's in the post again. Thank you.
Right, I'm going to move straight on. So, we've had a proposer and a seconder, and I would like to put that to the vote. I'm going to take each recommendation separately in case there are those who wish to vote in a different way on either recommendation. So, recommendation 2.1 on 6, please. All those in favour?
13.
And against?
2.
And, and abstentions? None. And recommendation 2.2, all those in favour, please.
14.
And against?
2.
And there should be no abstentions. No. Thank you very much indeed, members, for that item. If I could just pause for a moment and ask the Councillors Richardson, Wainwright, and Councillor Wallace as well, actually. Community Governance Review, which is on page 223. Mr. Bailey, over to you.
This involves a house of planning work in Rutland. It has houses on the other side of the road that go at least another 100 yards beyond. But for some reason or another, over the years, it is actually in the parish of Crossesmore. That it is put back into the parish of Rutland. It has been to the parish council at Oxford. It's been to the parish council in Rutland. I would recommend that the owner actually believe that Rutland is better than. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. Is that proposal? Sorry. Thank you. And do I have a second of that, please? Very cool. Thank you very much indeed. And would anybody like to make any comments on that? Mr. Walters.
Just a question, if I may, this all makes perfect sense. Obviously, having it in right out is completely ridiculous. How quickly will he be helping Oakham to get Hawkesbury open rather than buy?
That's a good point. When people start talking about it.
Mr. Please.
Not being a planning expert, Chair, I just wanted to ask this if I may, and we'll answer this. If we're going for this kind of proposal, then why not Cottesmore Lodge Farm? It seems to be bang in the middle of Cottesmore and Greetham the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Please. Mr. Pocock.
I just want to say this has taken many, many years to resolve. I mean, I think this is about 8 years or 9 years that this poor person has wanted to become part of Rutland. I'm not against that being the ward member for possible, but I'm very glad that at last this has been resolved, and I hope you all vote for it.
Thank you very much indeed. Anybody else? Well, with that in mind, I will take the two recommendations separately again. Oh, sorry. Who wants?
No, I was ready to vote.
Okay. So, recommendation 2.1, all those in favour, please. And against? And abstentions? And recommendation 2.2, please, those in favour? And against? And abstentions? Thank you very much indeed. So we'll move to item number 16, the appointment of representatives to outside organisations. Councillor Regan.
Then I'd like to read out the document that has been sent.
Mr. Chair, could you read out the document to the president, please?
Thank you. It was brought up at the previous full council meeting following the Councillor Montgomery. The appointments that were made for Councillor Montgomery to external organisations therefore have vacancies. The list of external organisations was circulated to the group leaders and the independent members. The feedback and the comments that we had from there were the East Midlands Rural Network vacancy is proposed to be filled by Councillor Beggy. The vacancy for the Melton and Rutland Home Start would be filled by Councillor Walters, and the vacancy on the trustees of Corrie Environmental Trust would be filled by Councillor Oxley. So they're the proposals and the changes to the document.
Proposed. Seconded.
Are there any alternative nominations before we put that to the vote? No, thank you very much. So all those in favour, please.
So that
decision was unanimous. Item number 17, any urgent business. I have not been notified of any other urgent business this evening, so I shall close this meeting tonight at 8:02, and thank you all for your attendance. Thank you.